I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 120 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. So hello and welcome back. The thing that is so ironic about this episode we are about to do is that right before I recorded it, and I just wrapped up an amazing interview with Figs O'Sullivan, who I'm going to tell you all about in just a second. Right before I recorded this, I had my weekly meeting with my husband. And that's not as weird as it sounds. What we actually review every week is kind of the master plan for the week ahead. And if I'm honest, it is largely a transportation plan for our 3 children, none of whom drive yet. So we, open up my calendar, we take a look at all of the activities that are coming up in the week ahead, any changes to their school schedule that need to be accounted for, all of the dance practices and gymnastics and guitar lessons and, theater rehearsals and boot camps and whatever they're in the current season. And we also look at my travel schedule, my husband's travel schedule, anything unusual going on at work in the early morning or the evening that may, take us out of rhythm. And we get all of this mapped out and color-coded. It's very nerdy. And then we assign those roles to my parents where we need to, or to the 2 of us. And it just was making me giggle because I could not think of a more appropriate lead-in to this episode, where we are going to be talking today about how to protect your marriage during the parenting years. Because I got to believe that probably on the list of things my husband would like to be doing with me, running a master plan for the transportation schedule for the week is pretty near the bottom, right? And so yet it's necessary. It must happen in order for us to run this household. And I think there are so very many things, whatever the ages of your children are, that can pull us out of connectedness and put us into a state of sort of mutually managing a household. And today's episode is really all about how not to let that be a complete takeover. Okay. So I spent some time interviewing Figs O'Sullivan, who is fabulous. You are going to love this episode. He is the founder and chief empathy officer, he calls himself, of a company called Empathy with an I, which really gives step-by-step guidance to individuals or to couples who care about their relationships. And he is today a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he's certified in emotionally focused therapy for couples and for individuals. So he operates as a therapist. He also runs this business called Empathy because he's really interested in how can he scale his insights and this model to a broader audience of people. And you'll hear about it in the episode. You'll also hear about how you can dig into some of the work that he's doing yourself if it's interesting to you in your relationship. He is truly, truly passionate about this work. And you'll hear him tell the story that when he began his professional career, he was a stockbroker. And in his family, that was breaking the family norm. Most people would have thought he would have actually been a therapist. And so he went his own way. He was a stockbroker, worked in Silicon Valley during the first .com boom. And he'll tell you the whole story about what happened and the path that led from being a stockbroker to being a couples therapist. Since then, he has spent years working with frustrated couples every day, people who are at a crossroads in their relationship, who really want to make things work, but are stuck in what he calls their waltz of pain. And that's really what led him to create Empathy, which was basically inspired by attachment theory and experiential psychotherapy and even improvisational dance and theater. So he is a fascinating character, and he is really funny. So you'll hear me giggle a lot during this episode. I think you're going to love him. So I am going to cut off my intro there and get into this interview with the very funny, very engaging, very quick-witted Figs O'Sullivan. Here we go. So Figs, again, thank you so much for being with us today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cherylanne, for having me on your show.
We're just going to all kick back and listen to that Irish brogue the whole time that we're together, and the audience is going to love it. So tell us first, to kind of get the ball rolling, a little bit about yourself, your professional background, your family, just so we have a good sense of who you are.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm primarily a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am from Ireland originally, as you know, the accent gives away. And I would say professionally, when I came to America first, I was actually a stockbroker. So, that was a bit of a shift from being a stockbroker to a therapist.
Yeah, I want to hear about that left turn.
Yeah, well, look, everyone in my family are therapists. So if anything, it was being a stockbroker that was the bizarre turn, really. And, given where I'm from, and so it was a coming home, really, to become a therapist, And I fought it for a long, long time. I didn't, I think I was scared a little bit I had a sense of that I would change pretty dramatically, like the personal development work I would do on myself. So I was always a little scared about it felt like I was going to die.
Yeah.
Which it is. It's true.
There
is a dying, of a certain identity or a certain way of protecting myself, which of course I still do from time to time. But it felt on the front end that I was basically to go down this path, which I knew was my true vocation and my calling, or whatever you want to call it, that I would die. Right. So, and then I became a stockbroker and all that stuff is because I didn't feel that good about myself. And I had this idea, look, if I make money first, then I'll be enough, right? Then I'll be good enough, right? But I never liked it. Look, there are some things about being a stockbroker. I'm a guy, I'm competitive, so that part was compelling because it's very competitive, right? But it wasn't really nourishing on a deep level. I want to say soul, but organic level, soul level. So, I'm glad that I finally got out of it.
I love it when people's work is born out of their own journey, and I've had the chance to talk to so many people now who can tell those stories where, you're teaching what you've learned and what was super powerful for you, which is amazing. And it led you ultimately to a happy marriage and 2 children and the life you have today.
The greatest success of my life by far is every night, at the end of the night, I go to bed. And of course, we're these, whatever you want to call it, San Francisco hippie types or whatever. I go to bed every night in the same bed as my wife, my 5.5-year-old, and my 2.5-year-old. Every night I go to the place that is the most special, wonderful, amazing, pinch myself. I cannot believe that I'm here. Right? Oh. Nothing will ever be as good. Right. And that's why I wrote this article. It's called A Place I'll Go Before I Die. Growing up as a kid, I had these little glimpses of belonging. And I always imagined in my life that if I was lucky to be conscious when I die, I'd go back to some place where my mom and my sister were together and it was just us and we were just present with each other. Mm-hmm. Right. But now what I never could see could happen is I have that every single day. Every day. So, yeah, look, it's incredible.
And you know what? What I love about the way you shared that story, I have the benefit of seeing your face as you tell it. Our listeners won't, is that I think everyone wants the person in their life to feel that way. We want our partner, our husband, to feel that way about the fact that we're in relationship, and we want to feel that way. So what gift that you have it and can teach from that space, because you're calling people toward it, right? You know what it looks like. And that gives you the ability to call other people toward it. So good.
Well, that's a beautiful way to put it. Absolutely. And look, let's be clear. I am still a very wounded human being. It's not like the time during the day. My wife and I work together. We're both couples therapists and we run a business together, right? we have moments of disconnection and our feelings get hurt and we hurt each other's feelings. Like, it's not like a 24/7, 365, like, oh, we found each other. Like,
Right.
like we get into negative cycles with each other when we get hurt. But, the good news is that we're able to know that those moments are temporary. And at the end of those painful moments with each other, we realize it only happened because we love each other and we're so important to each other. That's why we both got hurt and scared, ultimately. Mm-hmm. And we're able to repair and be there for those hurt, vulnerable places in each other.
And that's the work you do at Empathy. I mean, really,
exactly.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, like, why is it so important to you to help people connect more deeply? How did that become your passion? Like, why do you love what you do?
Right. Well, it is an interesting one. Like, again, I can answer this a few different ways, right? The first one, like I said, is, look, this is my own pain, right? Like, I'm a wounded healer, right? In order to be able to really help other people, I got to be able to have as much access to my own wounded parts as I have to my healer parts. And so my body is a barometer, right? It's really my main instrument. And I know deeply, because of my own wounding, the pain of feeling abandoned, rejected, I'm too much, or I'm not enough. And so then when people sit in front of me and they're in the pain of feeling abandoned or rejected, too much or not enough, I feel it. I resonate. I have empathy. I feel it in my own body. I'm with them and I can reflect back that I love you. I care about you. I get how hard this is for you. No wonder you would react the way you do, right? I can help people move from their reactivity to their vulnerability and then share and communicate it in a way they'll be heard and they'll get the love that they really long for. Whereas when the way they're actually trying to communicate it is actually going to get them the least amount of love on offer in any sale in any department store ever, right? Like, even though they're really trying, they think it makes sense. And my girlfriend supported me. And actually, I talked to all my girlfriends and they said I was right to go home today and tell my spouse, hey, by the way, you need to make some changes. But, I'm hiding behind the couch going, oh, Jesus, that was not a great idea. But anyway, look, so look, I happen to be good at it. But I'm primarily good at it not because of like some amazing skills I have, but because I'm wounded. I'm just turning my quote unquote hurt parts into capacities, right?
I want to ask a nuanced question because a lot of my listeners they're at a stage in life where they're raising children. So with mostly women listeners, they are often in committed relationships, not always, and they often have children at home. And so, the specific thing I thought we might dig into a bit is, does it get harder to maintain a strong partnership when you're raising children? And if so, like, why? And what do we do about it? I think that's a question that will help a lot of people listening.
Yeah, well, look, it's a great, great question. So I do think it gets harder, right? In many ways, right? Like I said, look, it's amazing, right? For me, being a dad, being part of a family is unbelievable. And it's the best thing that's ever happened, right? Any kind of questions, what am I going to do with my life? Oh, I don't know. Like, whatever. Like, thank God that neuroticism is dead. I know what I'm doing with my life. Done. I'm being a dad. Finished. Husband. Done. Decided. What a relief, right? So, but where it gets harder is deep down inside, all human beings fundamentally have this primary need to be emotionally bonded. It is not optional, right? When you were born, imagine you were born 100,000 years ago, and we haven't changed that. We haven't changed really at all, right? Biologically, right?
Right.
Now, you're born 100,000 years ago in the grasslands of the, African savannas. Your first need was not food and shelter. It definitely wasn't an iPhone, right? Right, or a baby carrier or whatever. Like your first needs is there's a good enough other on the other side of your birth that you can rely on to be there for you physically and be there for you emotionally. And your body is built to detect, is that person there? And if they're not there, you're going to freak out. To survive. Because if they're not there, a dingo will come along and they will eat you.
Right.
Like, I mean, literally, right?
Yes.
So your body is built to go, hey, my primary emotional bonding partner, my primary attachment figure is not there, right? I'm in big, big trouble. I need to protest this.
Okay.
Right? So you're not a baby anymore. Like, at least it looks like you're not a baby on the outside, but deep down inside, that baby's still here. Nothing physiologically changed.
Okay.
And now your primary attachment figure is no longer your mom, right? Fingers crossed, your listeners, right? We got to start at a whole other show if your primary attachment figure is still your mom, right? Like your mom, whoever raised you. Let's just say the reason you married your spouse or you're in a long-term relationship with kids with your partner, right? The reason you did that is because something in your body said, this one is now my primary attachment figure. This one is the one that I want to know he's physically and emotionally there for me, or they or she's physically or emotionally there for me, right? And with parenting, there's even more opportunities, circumstances where it looks like they're not there.
Yes.
So just think about that. So now this thing that is much more powerful than your ability to rationalize and problem solve, this survival mechanism, your need to be emotionally bonded, kicks off lots of times, right? So it's like, my God, they didn't come home from work and they know I'm alone with the kids. How could they? Right?
Yes.
Because it hurts, because they're not there for me. Now, but here's the rub. Here's why it gets even more complicated. There's a second half of wounding in love. And that's this. So there's the first one we just described is, I really need you to be here. And if you're not here, it hurts and it's scary. And that's why I'm reactive. That's why I might be blamey, criticizing, look like I'm disappointed in you. Mm-hmm. Give you some advice how you can be a better partner. And all my girlfriends agree.
I've never done that. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But so the other half of wounding in love, right? Imagine now again, let's go back to 100,000 years ago. We'll go through the time warp. I'm doing the wibbly wobbly body.
Right.
Thing, right. So, okay. So we go back down 100,000 years ago and you're running around the savannas, right? Your mom was there, your primary caregiver was there on the other side of your birth. But now you start to realize over the next few years, like, I don't know if mom likes me that much. Like I have a dirty diaper, right? I've got my 100,000 year ago fig leaf diaper on. And mom looks at me like, oh my God, you're so disappointing. You pooped again? And then I try and make her a little bouquet of prehistorical flowers. And she looks at the flowers and goes, really? That's what you got me? Have you seen what Johnny next door got for their mom? Ah. Wow, I really thought you were going to be such a better person than this. So now that person is facing an existential threat. Oh my God, like mom might be here, but she doesn't like me very much. I don't know if I'm safe. I am unacceptable. I'm not enough. So what happens is these two people always get together, right? And 80% of the couples that come in, one person has more access to the pain. Why aren't you here? And it looks like they're going to be blamey and critical. And of course, our society supports them in that view. And then their partner, most often the man in a relationship, right, in a heterosexual relationship, is going to feel more the pain of being unaccepted, not enough. I feel like I'm always a disappointment. And then they start to pull away or withdraw or shut down, or all they do is defend and explain themselves, because that's how they protest hurting inside. So they look like a grown man or a grown woman, right? But when it comes to love, we're all little babies. The physiology.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Oh, now I feel like anyway, whatever. Your biology hasn't changed, right? So then what happens is then these couples get in systems with each other. So all of a sudden right now, it's like, why didn't you come home in time? And it makes sense. It hurts that you didn't come home when you said you come home, but now I look like I'm disappointed in you. But when I look like I'm disappointed in you, now it hits inside you, the spouse, right?
That
like
you're not good enough.
The husband. Now I'm in the not good enough, which I'm not going to allow myself to feel those feelings. I've been trying not to feel those feelings all my life. So now I defend myself, explain myself, or go down to the basement and start watching the NFL or whatever the hell I do, right? start playing my video games, which sends another message to the spouse. See, I really am not cared for, and I am alone. And then I call my girlfriends again, and they say, you do deserve better. Go tell him. And then, of course, it'll make him feel even more like there's never a chance I'll be enough. So now I'm doubling down. I'm putting headphones
I love this.
When I watch
it's so good.
Anyway,
you're so good at breaking these down into stories, and it's so entertaining and insightful. So let me make sure I have this straight. There's two main sort of themes that people can fall into. One is, would you call it abandonment? Like, I'm not sure they're there for me anymore.
Look, in emotionally focused couples therapy, which I'm, a certified emotionally focused couples therapist, we call it the emotional pursuer. One person calls it emotional pursuer. And in the empathy process, we call that person the relentless lover. And that's where, like, deep down inside, they've got a wounding around feeling, am I cared for? Am I special? Do I matter to you? Are you here? Mm-hmm. And they're really hypervigilant.
Are you noticing me?
Yeah, do you notice me? Are you here today? Like, can I rely on you to be here, right? Mm-hmm. But deep down inside, they're actually really hurting, and it's scary, right?
Yeah.
Because I really need you to be here because you're my person.
Yep.
But more than likely, when they feel that pain, they don't just stay in the vulnerability. They try and do things to get out of it. And the most common things, even if they do it if they're not doing it intentionally, that they'll do is they'll blame or criticize. Mm-hmm. Even if they think, like, I'm actually telling you this for your own good, it's going to land on the other person as you're unhappy with me, you're disappointed in me, I'm unacceptable, and you're just blaming and criticizing.
Mm-hmm. Right? And then the other side, the other one side then, is I'm not good enough.
I'm the not good enough. I'm powerless to ever be good enough to make you happy. And that's terrifying too. Now, sometimes it's hard for someone that doesn't have a lot of that particular emotional vulnerability to get just how that is an equal amount of pain and suffering to it looks like you're not there for me, or you don't care about me, or you don't notice. Like, when someone says, hey, I feel like you're not noticing me today, and their partner defends themselves, go, geez, I told you, you look great. What are you talking about? Right. The only reason they defended themselves quickly like that is because it actually touched something really painful inside them. It looks like you're disappointed in me again. Mm-hmm. And that hurts, but you don't get to see the hurt part because they quickly bypass. They move so quickly past the hurt part into defending themselves or shutting down that you don't actually ever get to know what really, really is going on deep down inside. Mm-hmm. So that person, they're like, I'm hurting because it looks like I'm a disappointment to you, or I'm not enough for you, right? And I'm powerless to ever be enough is what it feels like on the inside. We call that person in emotionally focused couples therapy the emotional withdrawer. Because that's what they do. That's the more likely action they're going to take when they're hurting inside is they're going to pull away. Right. Or in the empathy process, we have this quiz where people on empathy.com where you can take this quiz and it'll tell you who you are, and it'll give you this self-reflection in very loving, kind language about what you create with your partner. Anyway, so we can talk about that later. But so yeah, we call them in the empathy process, the person that can feel bad about themselves inside, like they're always a disappointment, they're unacceptable, and they tend to either protest their innocence or shut down and pull away. We call that person the emotional withdrawer. Oh, excuse me. In the empathy process, we call them the reluctant lover.
Hey friend, ever wondered why you're so tired all the time? Why you need that afternoon caffeine hit every day just to stay in the game? Hint, you probably need more sleep. So I created something just for you. It's my 7-day sleep makeover. I'll teach you the 3 steps you need to move from exhausted to energized so you can live out your brilliant dreams. Head to brilliantbalance.net/sleep and start your sleep makeover today. You're going to love this.
So they're the two. That pattern is the most common pattern in the world. And I love this. People come into me all the time to my office and they say, Figs, you would not believe how terrible we are. We are an awful couple. And then they tell me, and I'm like, well, hello, this is the easiest thing to help people with in the world. And they're like, people are so relieved. It's like, okay, you telling me this makes sense. And this doesn't mean we're ruined, broken, and we're awful. Right. I'm like, absolutely not. This is just evidence of how much you love each other. But you've never, ever been pointed in a direction to be able to see this in a way that you should be actually running down to your local supermarket and buying a bottle of like the cheap champagne. Don't bother with the, whatever, the fake stuff. And you should be celebrating with each other. We fight because we love each other. This is brilliant. We had no idea that all these fights we were having is just evidence of how much we matter to each other. Well, God, we should be celebrating our fights.
I love this. I love this. And how do you think this gets exacerbated when we add kids to the picture?
Oh, yeah.
Most of our, my clients, at least the women who I'm in like two-way dialogue with, would say it's time. There's not enough of me to go around.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The kids need time. My job needs time. I need time. And there's just not enough time to invest in this relationship. And so, but this is where the connection is. So he, quote unquote, he never feels like he gets enough of my time and energy. That's what people would say.
Being the partner, the husband.
Right.
Is that what you mean? Right.
Yes. And so, and connecting that back to what you just shared, which is like, well, if that's true and they're feeling lonely or abandoned because you're like, maybe she's not here anymore. Maybe this person who's my person is kind of more absent. I mean, I'm wondering if that's where the crossover is.
Well, so this is interesting, right? In that case, then, like as you just described it, I would think of, on the surface level, we'd have to study in much more detail, that the husband in that case would be the person that's the emotional pursuer. They're feeling the abandoned part.
Right.
And it's the woman that's feeling like, oh my God, I'm doing the best I can. And no matter what I do, you're disappointed in me. Like, it's not like, it's the time. It's not that so they're, even though it makes sense, they're protesting their innocence because they're feeling like you'd never be happy with me. Now, absolutely that happens. But more likely than not, what I see in my office is the roles are reversed, right? It's
and they fall along gender lines. Typically, these
more, but not always, and more because people were socialized, brought up differently, and more. There, it used to be pretty like almost definitely the wife is the emotional pursuer and the man is the emotional withdrawer. But younger and younger couples, that's less and less the case.
And I will tell you this, I really believe in our client community, we see a lot of reversal of typical gender roles. I don't know as much about our broader listenership for this podcast because I don't talk to them all, but in our client community, I think we have a lot of
you got a lot of driven, would like people that are like, I'm working
very ambitious,
on projects,
very driven.
That totally makes sense. Now here's the thing, like it's all of this is a map, right? But ultimately, here's really all that happens between two people, right? The categorization is helpful. Like, just like if you get a diagnosis, well, thank God I know what it is. But in and of itself, it's just a helpful guide. Really what's happening is one person is hurting inside when they don't feel love, and then they have a way they react. And that hurts the other person deep down inside. And then they have a way they react, right? Like, we don't have to say, oh, well, you're hurting in the type of a pursuer and you're hurting in the type. What we do know is, there's this chain reaction, and we want to study it and understand it to the point where we have this shared empathy for each other. And then out of that shared empathy, we can grow love and connection and understanding and come up with solutions together as a team. That's what we're trying to do.
Got it.
If we try and come up with solutions, like we're having a hard time, we don't have enough time, let's come up with a negotiated solution, how you're going to carve out 4 hours in the weekend, like a quality time. Like, if that solution is created without the emotional, empathic experience, the solution won't work, right? It doesn't actually change anything fundamentally between the people, right? I like the expression, relationship ends where compromise begins.
Oh, interesting.
We're not looking for compromise. We're looking for this shared empathic experience. Oh my God, I understand how this must be so hard. Here I am saying I don't get enough time with you. And every time I say it, you end up feeling powerless and hurt. Like, no matter what you do, I'll always be disappointed in you. And because you love me so much, being a disappointment to me is awful for you. Now I get why you defend and explain yourself. Oh, you poor devil. And then, of course, look, I know you love me so much, and it looks like I'm busy with these other things. And because I'm your person, it looks like you're not my priority. No wonder you would feel abandoned. Ouch, my little schnookums. Right? And you don't have to speak like that to each other. Right?
So funny. So
Anyway,
funny.
so that's what we want. We want, before we come up with this, ideally imagine from that place now is like, look, I want to spend 4 hours with this weekend, sweetie. And then you could imagine the husband, oh, sweetie poo, I want you to make sure you work on that project. Let's get it done. Now, just 30 minutes later, they were saying the exact opposite things to each other. But now, because we have this emotional understanding, there's all sorts of new solutions that are possible.
And that's a great transition to solutions, because I think, I would love to leave everybody today with just an idea or two.
Sure.
That is, if I described like the state we're trying to address, it's that state of disconnect, right?
Sure.
Many of the women will say, we're just feeling really disconnected. Yeah. And you are an expert in reestablishing connection. So one idea you've given us is this notion of getting into a systems narrative, a shared narrative, and getting outside of the individual.
Yeah.
Practically speaking, right? What's an idea or two that people can try right away to get things connected?
Right. Well, so this is the most important one, like we talked about, right? Is how do we go from our own subjective experience, trying to have suggestions of how we could make things better, to having one shared understanding that this is really hard for both of us, right? And this is a really hard thing to grasp and accept. Don't work so hard on trying to fix a problem. The problem's not the problem. The way you're talking about the problem is the problem. The problem is not your biggest problem. The way you're talking about the problem, the way you think about the problem is your biggest problem. If you shift your problem from, I'll tell you what the issue is here, they're never going to be happy with me no matter what I do. And the other person's in there like, well, I'll tell you what the problem is. They just won't prioritize our relationship. Like they promised me they were going to when they signed that marriage contract, right? If we can shift those two perspectives to actually, hold on a second, the way we both are looking at this in that way, the way we're both hurting each other's feelings, that's actually the problem. Both of us. That shift may seem like, well, but we haven't done anything. That shift changes everything. You're literally then standing in a completely new world. Now, the problem is still the same. We don't have any time, for example, right? But how we feel about each other has changed so dramatically. So look, I know people would like to have something very practical. Just do A. And here's
and
what,
it'll all be better.
Work on shifting your perspective. If I'm hurting, my spouse or partner is definitely hurting. If I'm experiencing my spouse or partner as being hurtful to me, I guarantee you, even if you can't see it, they are experiencing you as being hurtful to them. Now, combine those four things together. Oh my God, this is so painful for us. And we actually really love each other. Get to that place as soon as possible. Now, it's quite a significant rewiring of the brain, because even as your question suggests, we want, and I get it all the time, and people are like, and now what?
Right.
And now what? Right. Exactly. Yeah. And now what? But this is the thing. A lot of my job is to get people to that place and then stay there. Don't worry. Don't do anything. If two people meet each other in that empathic, compassionate moment, now they're reconnected. We have to connect with each other in this place of, this is so painful for both of us because we love each other. That's where we have to connect with each other. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to connect with each other at the dinner table, and we're having our champagne and there's a candle and someone is playing a violin at our well, okay, I don't want that. That's embarrassing. But you know what I mean? People want to connect with, I hate when they come around, they play the music and you're
Me too. I do not like that one bit.
When are you leaving? Right. But anyway, like everyone's connecting these magical moments. The first place we have to be able to connect is in the painful moments. Mm-hmm. That's where we got to be able to connect. So just work on, can I see this is an us problem, not a me or a you problem? It's only happening because we love each other. That perspective shift is everything.
I think that language, I had been thinking of it as, it's not you or me, it's we, and you said us problem.
Beautiful, yeah.
That shift of get out of your individual perspective and start thinking about a shared perspective of the two of you as almost like one entity, right? What is the shared? That's a powerful shift, and is going to require some time to sit with and think about. And I'm sure for everyone to talk about inside their own relationships for sure.
Can I tell you one more? Can I tell you one more story that I really love? A little analogy.
Please.
About how our culture doesn't help us with this work, right? How our society that I'm describing, right? Our society doesn't help us. So here's the predominant. I came up with this analogy to describe why this is such a hard shift to make, right? Imagine your relationship was, you're living in an apartment building, right? There's a couple that are together are living in an apartment building. And one person lives in the penthouse of the apartment building, right? And the other person is down in the janitorial quarters. And the person in the penthouse is like, I'm the one that tries. I'm the one that's always trying to make special time for us. I'm the one that wants to be connected. I'm the one that's in touch with my feelings and I try and share with you.
Right.
I'm the good spouse, right? And so they're living in the best room, right? And in the entire the best unit in the entire apartment building, penthouse, views of the city, but they're all alone in there. But they're able to call all their buddies, men or women, who are also living in the top of their like buildings, going, "I'm so good here, all on my own." And do you think they would come and be with me? Oh no, they're too busy prioritizing this or that or whatever it is, right? Now, the other partner is down in the janitor's quarters. It's not even supposed to be in a unit. It's like there's some rooms and stuff, and they've made a little roll-out bed for them, right? But it's better to stay there because if they come out, they're going to hear, you, what are you prioritizing over me today? So they're like, well, shit, I'll stay down here. I'm not coming out, right? Because I'll never be enough. I'll always be unacceptable. Now, they call their friends, and their friends are going to say, surprised you're allowed out, right? Whoa. What have you been doing wrong today? Oh, you're going to pay for this one, right? So both people keep getting, and they call their moms and they go, you know, you really deserve better. You shouldn't be treated this way, or like you really should ask for your needs to be met. Their therapists, their coaches tell them, you deserve better. You're a queen or you're a king, and like, you know, you need to be respected. Like all the advice, most of the advice people get like it makes things worse. Keeps it going, right? With good intentions, though. People meant it to help, right? Now, I come along and I come into the apartment building and I create a well-appointed apartment in the middle of the building. And I tell that couple, hey, come here, look at this apartment I have where both of you can live in and you both make sense. I get why it must be so lonely up in that penthouse. Ouch, I am so sorry, sweetie, right? Or dude, or whatever you say, right? You know, I don't want to say sweetie to a guy. I think he might leave. Like, but whatever, right? So look, I'm so sorry. This is so painful. Of course, it makes sense you're alone up here and you would blame or criticize, right? And then I can go to the person downstairs in the janitorial says like, oh, this must be awful. Always being a disappointment. I'm so sorry. Come on up or come on down, depending where you're positioned in the relationship. Now, here's the thing. As you can imagine, it's easier for the person in the janitorial quarters to come up. They're like, dude, I thought I was the bad one all along. I'm in. Like, but here's the weird thing. The perception in couples, right, and I know I'm talking a lot. I'll shut up now in a second. But the perception in couples is that it's the person down in the janitorial that's going to find it the hardest to do couples counseling. It's not, in reality, that's not true. They're like, well, this is brilliant. I'm not the problem. I'm in. They're already sitting. And this is what's so weird. The person in the penthouse that was sure I'm the emotionally enlightened one, they're like, I ain't coming down. I'm not coming down to some shared responsibility place, right? It takes longer for the emotional pursuer to buy into the process, even though on the surface it usually looks like it's the emotional withdrawer that I do not want to go to counseling.
Is saying I don't want to do it, right?
Yeah, but it's actually easier for them more times than not. Anyway, so that's what we do. We want to live in this well-appointed apartment where we both make sense. We're both hurting. Both of our feelings are valid. And that's where we can love each other.
Thank goodness you made your way into this work is all I can say. You're so clearly in the right place and the change that you can invoke in the world one couple at a time is extraordinary. So I'm really glad we've had a chance to talk about it today. I want to close with a speed round. We have
Oh,
a
yeah.
series of questions that we ask everyone. And you actually have the honor of being the first guy on our podcast. So we'll see how these speed round questions roll here.
Great.
I think they'll apply. Okay. First question is, what makes you feel brilliant?
I think, like I mentioned, what makes me feel brilliant is being with my kids and seeing my kids laugh and smile and be creative and happy.
Yes. What's your favorite time-saving or productivity hack?
I was thinking about, like, I feel bad about this. I actually I have this email program called Superhuman. I'm a bit of a productivity app nerd, I have to be honest. And Superhuman, it's one of these latest San Francisco, Silicon Valley startups where they've just built this really super blazing fast email service. It is an invitation only thing. And I swear I'm not like I just now, as I say it, I realized that people wanted an invite. Like, I think I get 1 month free or something if they do. I wasn't even thinking about that, right? But I love Superhuman because I really, even though I have like Todoist, I love that as to-do manager. I use Notion for project management. I love Notion, but I do almost all my project management directly out of email inbox.
Love it.
The one thing I will say that Superhuman's a little clunky is they don't have a unified inbox. But I found that now has helped me that all my different emails, I just do it inbox by inbox. But anyway, sorry. See, I'm a little bit of
you are a productivity nerd. I love it.
I know.
What is something you've had to learn to say no to?
I have had to learn to say no to making all my employees happy all the time. Because I kind of identify more as a therapist than I do as the business owner. I still, which is good on one level, people like working with me. But unfortunately, as we've gotten bigger, I've agreed to things that weren't practical or like not economically viable. And so I've had to go back. So anyway, I've learned some tough lessons of being a boss. Is it more of a growing edge for me being the boss? I hate even saying the word. So yeah, that's a big thing. My growing edge of being able to say no, being a boss.
Yep. What's one dream you're chasing?
One dream I'm chasing. It's interesting you said about like you can help couples one couple at a time. The real purpose of empathy is to try and build a scalable way that I can get this wisdom out to the world. And that's where the quiz, like you answer these questions about yourself, you get your self-discovery report, you invite your partner, they invite our spouse, they get their self-discovery report. But then now, because we have both your answers, you get your system report. It tells you who you are together, and it lays out what you got to work on for the rest of your life. That's all automated. You just go on, it's free, knock yourself out. Then we have courses, and I've got all these coaches. But my real dream is, how do I get this relationship wisdom that I have and I love sharing into the hands of more and more and more couples, and not just be selling hours of time because, as a dad, it's just, I don't have that many.
No.
So that's my real dream.
Well, we're going to get that into everyone's hands in just a second here too.
Yeah.
What's the song you turn on when you need to get in the zone?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I'm going to be totally honest here. It's going to probably sound really weird. This is where people are going to say, that guy's a freak. I'm more likely to listen to something really emotional. I'm more likely to listen to Sade or something like that. Something that like drops me into this very deep place where I can touch the vulnerability. Because again, that's what kind of, like, I'll listen to Sade's, I think it's the Big Unknown, or Is It a Crime, or the soundtrack to Schindler's List, or some like Explosions in the Sky, like so one of those big epic cinematic, like something that drops me into vulnerability. But then in that, I kind of feel this bigger sense. It drops me deep into vulnerability, but then it gets me in touch with a much bigger purpose. Like
that's your superpower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Let's tell people how to get all these good things. So give us the URL where they need to go, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Brilliant. So empathy.com, empathy with an I on the end.com. Right.
Empathy.
And so I couldn't, It had to be empathy with an I in the end because I couldn't afford empathy with a Y in the end.
I understand.
Yeah. So
and so that is where they can get the assessment. The quiz.
That's where they do the assessment and discovery process. But here's the thing. I got to be honest. I've really loved talking to you. And I'm not kidding. I was in a fight with my wife. So you can imagine it was a hard, I was like right before getting on. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. Here's what I'd like to do. And we didn't talk about this, right? I want to create a coupon code so that your listeners, if they buy my online course, right? It's the conflict solution, learning to love better. And it's kind of like I try to put the A to Z of what I do into one course. It's $297. And we give a 50% discount to your listeners.
Oh, that's generous. Right? Thank you.
Well, I just but let's come up with the coupon code right now. What would be a good coupon code? And then I'll just make it.
Be brilliant.
Be brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. Be brilliant. Okay. So be brilliant. And then of course we'll put that in the show notes, right?
Yep.
So if you do the coupon code, be brilliant. And then if you use it when you go and you put I think it's empathy.com/go is the course URL. And then you'll get 50% off the course.
Awesome. Figs, thank you. This was absolutely delightful. I learned a ton. Our listeners are going to learn a ton. And we're all going to go take the quiz.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me on. And hopefully we'll get to chat again.
Excellent. Well, there you have it. See, I told you it was going to be good and you were going to giggle and love the interview with Figs. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I was taking notes the whole time I was talking to him. I'm sure you were too. We're going to try to do a really good job in the show notes here so that you can access additional resources from Figs and from his team at Empathy. So look in the show notes for the links that you'll need to contact him to take the quiz or the relationship assessment, and then also to get more information about the course that he referenced at the very end that I think some of you will find really interesting. So those resources are coming your way. And, I think one of the concluding points I would make about today's episode is that if we allow being really busy in our lives to get in the way of this really authentic dialogue inside of our relationships, it's just a travesty. And there's so much damage that can be done, and it can be so much better if we really take the time to kind of get up above things and recreate that systems narrative that he referenced during today's episode. So relationships are certainly one thing that can suffer when we're really busy. And in fact, they're not the only thing that can suffer. So in our next episode, I'm going to talk about the danger of being busy all the time and what the things are that can go sideways in your life when you're stuck in that cycle of just being really, really busy all the time. So tune in next week to catch that. In the meantime, if you loved today's episode, I would love it if you would rate the show or leave us a review. You can do that any place you are listening. It only takes a minute, and I would love it if you did it. And then also, if you are new to this show, make sure you come join us in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. I would love to see you there. Completely free experience and a great way to go a little deeper with this community of women and get some support so that you can be the rock star you are meant to be. Till next time, my friends, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.